Well, I'd like to use this piece of design work to illustrate the value of the tool that's on the file drop-down. File size, if I click on it, remember this looks like a relatively simple drawing, but it's over a megabyte in size, and you can use a shortcut, which is just FS, and hit enter. That tells you it's a megabyte of file size, and if I scroll out, it's a relatively simple drawing. One tool that can help you find why this is such a big drawing for its simplicity is to grab everything and look in the properties box and scroll down list. So there's a couple of dimensions, a couple of blocks, some hatching, but there's 4,755 rectangles in here, and one wonders why that's so. Let's zoom in here, and if I pick that section of paving, it's a piece of custom paving, but if we look in the properties box, it's a hatch. But when I have a look at the very big extension in here, can you see if we zoom in here, these are individual rectangles, and there are 4,700 of them stretching all the way around there. So I would be inclined to select one of those rectangles and go into Tools and send it to the back. And then I should be able to pick again. That's a rectangle going through there. What I'm after is trying to pick. Let's see what we can do here. I'm just trying to see what's beyond there. That's interesting, isn't it? That there's a big rectangle. That looks a little odd, but there are 3 polylines in there. If I pick that one, and then this one, and that one, okay, there's just 3 of them there. So if I delete that one, and then pick again, and then delete that one, what I was hoping to do, and I'll undo and undo there, what I was hoping to do was to say, well, we don't need a polyline through that area. If I could find a polyline that covers that whole area, and so far I can't, what I'm looking for is a polyline that traces around here. So if I were drafting here, I'd set a polyline, a new one, probably set a different colour so I can pick it easily, and then trace around the whole of that area, and then apply a hatch rather than lots of individual rectangles. Now, how does this happen? I suspect the hatching was done correctly, but the hatching is subsequently being exploded. If I pick this hatching, right click and say explode, and we zoom in here, can you see, oh, that's exploded not into a rectangle, but into the individual lines. So now we've really got quite a problem with it. So I suspect hatching was applied correctly and then has been exploded and generated millions of little rectangles or lines. So we can reduce the file size here markedly by paying attention to always hatch a polyline or a closed entity, and don't explode it. Just remove it and rehatch if you need to do that. Well, to illustrate the more sensible approach, I've drawn a polyline and traced over appropriate corners. I've made that easier for myself by going to Entity Snap, turning Object Snap on, and having endpoint and intersection on. So I was able to have a single entity, so we've replaced, without exaggerating too much, maybe 150, 200 rectangles in this space, and we're going to replace it with one single entity, a hatch. And in order to hatch, we need to get an angle. Now, if I look here, this hatch here and see it doesn't, because it's also been exploded. So we need to know what angle of hatching to put in here. So I've left a couple of these rectangles. Let's get rid of one, and we'll zoom in here and we'll explode it. And then we can pick an individual line that will give us the angle we want. And the angle is 56. So now let's get rid of that. And we can now say, we'll set our drawing colour back to by layer. And if we put it on a layer called paving, which I just noticed has a brown colour associated with it, we should be able to say draw, hatch. We need to load a hatch pattern, so let's pick the ISO hatch pattern here, and we want the hatch pattern just simple lines. So we scroll down to find line, parallel, horizontal lines. At this stage we don't have any knowledge of the angle, so we'll say OK, but we've got to select the entity first, so we can easily pick the polyline, hit enter, and we need to have an angle of 56, and the scale, it's always a good idea to look at this density figure, and I'll increase my scale maybe 100, maybe to 100. We'll see how we go with that. We've selected the entity, pick the hatch pattern, and we'll say OK. So clearly we need to change the scale. Let's go to 500 and see how close that is. Actually, it's always a good idea just to save before you adjust the angle, the scale. Maybe we do it in a couple of bytes. Oh, that's going higher, isn't it? We want to, we'll try 50. Still too big, maybe 10. And now we've gone a little too small. We need to have the same pattern. It'd be great if I could just pick one of these and get the scale of hatch patterning, but we have to work it out by trial and error. And still somewhere, so it's somewhere between 10 and 20, so we'll try 15. We must then be getting quite close, and I'm happy with that because it's only an indicator of hatch. So now when we pick that area, it's got the right angle, it's a hatch pattern, it's a single entity, and we have the scale. So if we were able to run around there and fix that up, if we were aware of the warning not to explode hatching, we would be able to avoid this sort of problem. And I'd probably then be inclined to set that red line back. I like to leave those lines back to by a layer, and we're away. So we're going to reduce the file size. There's still a lot of hatching in here, but if we now go file size, we're down to less than a megabyte. So we're winning. So this drawing is much, much too large, caused by exploding our hatch patterns that represent paving. And if you've got this part of the drawing in another drawing, that problem will be exacerbated or multiply as you use this or follow this approach.